The first function which we are going to talk about is sum function. But before we jump into this function, let's understand the basic logic behind addition. So let's suppose if I have two numbers like 4 and 5, and if I have to add it, what I will do, I will simply go to a cell and I will press equals to, then I will tap on the first number. After this, I will put an addition sign and then the second number. Once I have both my numbers, I will tap enter key. I will get the results. Now, what we are doing is instead of putting this plus sign, we will be using the sum function. That's how it works. Look here on your screen, you have 5 numbers written here in a column. Now, if I have to sum it, I will go to a cell where I want the result of all these number. I will put an equals to and then I will type sum. You can see the sum function here. Then you need to either you can click on this sum or you can press the tab key on the keyboard. Now the syntax of this function is asking me to put my numbers like number 1, number 2 and so on, and there will be a comma between all the numbers. Look here, I tap on first number, I put a comma, I tap on second number, again a comma, third, comma, fourth, comma and fifth. Once I have my all numbers, I will close this bracket and I will press enter. I have the results now. But the reason of using Excel is to be time efficient. This is why instead of selecting the numbers manually, we will be selecting the complete column like this. And I will close this bracket, I press enter, I have my results. Easy. Let's move towards a new example. Here I have taken a column and some rows where I have some numbers. Now I want to add all these numbers together. If I will use the sum function and I will use all these numbers individually, then it is time consuming and not a good practice. But initially, if you are new to Excel, you are just learning how to use Excel, you can try this. But can you see here? I put all these numbers K6, K7 manually. It takes a lot of time. Instead of this, you can simply use some function and you can select your data like this. But now understand this thing in this way. Your data lies in different cell and they are not together. So the first data which we have, that's from K6 to K10. I have already selected the data and you can see some lines going around this box. After this, I need to put a comma here. Now I want to add this number with these numbers. So I select the second data, which is from M6 to O7, and I will close the bracket and I will have the results. Easy. Now let's look at the same example again where I have just deleted one entry from here. So if I use the sum function again like this, so when I have to select this box, I will select the complete box like this and I will have my results. That's 475 and it's the exact result. Now the thing you need to pay attention is when you use a sum function, it does not include a blank cell. This is why even if I'm going to add this complete box like an array, I will have the same results because as I said, some function do not consider blank cells. Now let's suppose I put some text here like this. So this is not a number, it is a text. Some function ignores text values, which mean if I'm going to sum this complete box, I will have the same results no matter what text or what a combination of text or number shall I type here. It won't make any difference. Easy? Before you jump to the next part of this video, I have attached a sheet with this video on the description where you can practice all these functions by yourself. Average function is the second basic function in Excel. But before you understand how it works, you should have a basic knowledge how average actually works. So if I have to calculate the average of 10 and 20, what we do generally, we add both the numbers and then we divide it by 2. So the average of 10 and 20 is 15. In the same way, if we consider three number like this, so we add all the three numbers and we'll divide it by 3, we get the average. This is how average work till now. But if we talk about in Excel, instead of doing this manual calculation of adding and dividing, you can simply use the average function. Now the syntax here is number 1 comma number 2 and so on. So it doesn't matter how many numbers you are going to choose, you can have as much as number you want. Here you can see a set of data where I have taken some test numbers for few students. Now I wish to have the average of volume for 3 tests. So as per the syntax, either I can choose these 3 numbers manually like this, I can have my results, or instead of like selecting numbers manually, I can select all the 3 numbers together like this also. I can have the same result. Now what you need to focus here is on this example. I have taken one entry as 0. So let's suppose if I calculate the average of 9 and 7, that is 8. But the result which we have here is 5.33. The difference is because when you using average function, it consider all the numeric value no matter even if it's 0. This is why instead of adding 9 and 7, average function work in this way. It add all the 3 numbers and it divide the result by 3 and it gives us 5.33. Now just below this, if you see the student Tony, he does not seems to be appeared on test 2. So the entry is completely blank and the average of 5 and 1 is 3. It's because average function do not consider blank cells. So till now what we have understood is average function include 0 while making calculation and average function ignore all the blank cells. Now let's talk about average if function. As its name suggests, it consists of average and if, which mean you can use average function with some conditions. How? Suppose the data which I have here, I just want to calculate the average of those tests where students score more than 1, which mean I do not want my average function to consider those entries where the test results are either 1 or less than that. So what I have to do is I will be using average if. Now I will be selecting the range. Now the criteria is that I want the test result should be greater than 1 and I will close the bracket. I will have the results.
Now, how this average if function is working, it is considering only those numbers which are greater than 1, which mean it is ignoring this 1. In the same way, it will ignore this one, 0, 1, and we have the results. Now, let's talk about average ifs. There's a minute difference between average if and average ifs. In average if you can use only one criteria while using average function, whereas in average ifs you can have multiple criteria. Now, in order to understand this, I'm going to hide a few columns from here. Now, what I want to calculate is I want to get the average of test numbers of all the students, but only for the red group. You can see here on this column, there are some colors mentioned. So now I want to get the average of test numbers which are in red group. What I will do is I'm going to use average ifs. I will select my range. Now I will select my criteria, and the criteria actually is that I want to consider only those students which are in a red group, and I will close the bracket like this. So if you see the result here is 5.66. Let's check it manually. Now the group which is in red color, I'm going to add it manually. There are 3 students which are in red group, so I will divide it by 3 and the result is exactly the same. So that's how average ifs work. Before you jump into the next section of this video, please check the description. There is a sheet which I have attached where you can practice this function.